Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. We start today's video with the fake HOA that thought they could bully a neighborhood with letters and made-up rules, until one stubborn homeowner tore their authority apart with a concrete shed and a smile. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Fake HOA enforcers hated my mom's roof. When my mom moved into her neighborhood, there was technically an HOA, but not really. It wasn't funded, wasn't official, and nobody had ever signed a thing. Still, a handful of neighbors acted like it existed. They'd walk around handing out rules and writing letters, and apparently a lot of people just listened to them. Not my mom. The rules included things like no sheds allowed, and every roof had to be made of wood. Never mind that wood shakes are expensive, prone to catching fire, and a nightmare for bugs like silverfish. For a while, my mom ignored the whole HOA, pretend police, but eventually her roof needed replacing. She wasn't about to spend thousands more just to appease some busybodies with no legal standing, so she hired a crew and had a perfectly good asphalt shingle roof put on. A week later, a letter arrived in the mailbox. Letter: this is to inform you that your new roof violates HOA guidelines. You must remove the asphalt and replace it with a wood roof immediately. My mom read it once, laughed out loud, and crumpled it straight into the trash. The following month, she decided to go bigger. She'd always wanted a shed to store her tools and gardening supplies, so she hired a contractor to build a 14 by 20 foot poured concrete shed in the backyard. As soon as the forms went up and the cement truck pulled in, the HOA board came waddling over. Karen and Ken, a couple in their late 60s who treated the neighborhood like their personal fiefdom, stood at the edge of the yard with clipboards. Karen: excuse me, you can't build that here. Sheds are strictly forbidden under HOA guidelines. Mom, without even looking up from her clipboard, where she was signing for the concrete delivery: good thing I didn't join your HOA then. Ken: ma'am, this is against the rules. You'll be fined and you'll have to tear it down. Mom, finally turning to face them, sunglasses on, one eyebrow raised. Then send me the bill. I'll frame it and hang it in the shed. The concrete poured, the walls went up, and when the roof went on, Mom even painted the shed to match the house, just to rub it in. It didn't take long for the rest of the neighborhood to notice. People had been quietly grumbling about the rules for years, but nobody wanted to be the first to push back. Once they saw my mom's asphalt roof and brand new concrete shed, it was like a dam broke. One neighbor put up a steel shed, another got a metal roof. A few months later, there were backyard workshops, storage sheds, and garages popping up all over the place. Even the people who'd once enforced the rules were suddenly silent. The so-called HOA lost whatever fake authority they thought they had. The best part, the HOA had always insisted that wood roofs were aesthetically pleasing and historically accurate for the neighborhood, but wood roofs attract pests, especially silverfish. My mom had dealt with them for years, constantly battling little bugs chewing through papers and fabrics. After she switched to asphalt, the problem practically disappeared. Her neighbors weren't so lucky. The ones who clung to the wood roofs out of fear of Karen and Ken's letters ended up with infestations. Silverfish in their bookshelves, closets, even their pantry boxes. One day, Karen cornered my mom at the mailbox. Karen, snippy tone: you know, all these sheds and new roofs have ruined the neighborhood aesthetic. Mom, smiling sweetly: funny, my aesthetic doesn't include silverfish eating my curtains. But you do you, Karen. After that, Karen stopped talking to her entirely. Meanwhile, half the street had followed my mom's lead, upgrading their roofs and building sheds like it was a competition. The HOA never sent another letter. The best part is how her pushback gave everyone else permission to stop pretending. Once one person ignored the fake rules, it was like dominoes. Steel sheds, metal roofs, backyard workshops springing up everywhere. The board had zero power to stop it, and everyone realized they'd been living under empty threats. And our second story. The time my neighbor's war on playground noise ended thanks to a beat-up Hearse. This happened way back in 2012, but to this day, every time I think about it, I can't help but grin. Sweet, sweet satisfaction. We just moved into our new house, a nice, quiet little neighborhood. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was peaceful, family-friendly, and the perfect place to settle down. Except for one problem: our neighbor, Betty. Now, Betty wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed queen of the block, perched at her window like a hawk, glaring at anyone who dared disturb her kingdom. Her house had a perfect view of the neighborhood playground, just like ours, but instead of enjoying the sight of kids playing and families gathering, she absolutely loathed it. In her eyes, children having fun was nothing but chaos and disorder. Within our first 2 months living there, she called the cops on the kids playing at the playground not once, not twice, but 3 times. And each time she tried to escalate it by accusing them of drugs, violence, and whatever ridiculous nonsense she could dream up. Of course, the officers were clearly annoyed with her antics, but had no choice but to respond when she made those kinds of accusations. After the 3rd time, I'd had enough. I went over to her house and, as politely as I could muster, told her that the kids had every right to use the playground and she needed to either accept that fact or consider moving out to the middle of nowhere where she wouldn't have to see another child ever again. That's when she completely lost it. Full-on toddler tantrum mode. She started ranting about how she had more important things to do than watch over a bunch of juvenile delinquents, and proudly declared she was going to hire a private investigator to keep an eye on the playground because, nothing says dangerous criminal activity like a bunch of 10-year-olds on a swing set. Well, my conscience couldn't possibly let poor Betty spend her hard-earned pension hiring a real private investigator. Fortunately for her, and very conveniently for me, my brother-in-law, Tommy, had just lost his job and was looking for a way to pay the bills. And just like that, a plan was born. 2 birds, 1 stone. I called up Tommy, explained the situation, and within 48 hours, Tommy's PI office was officially in business. Now, Tommy isn't exactly the classic image of a private investigator. He's scruffy, lives in overalls and Crocs, and has the laid-back attitude of a man who's never once stressed about anything. But that made it even better. Nobody would suspect him of being anything but an eccentric neighbor. And of course, every PI needs a proper vehicle. We found the perfect one, an old beat-up black Hearse. That thing looked like it had been on one too many horror movie sets, but for just over $1,000, it was an absolute steal. Plus, what better vehicle for long stakeouts than one literally designed for long, silent rides? So we parked Tommy in his new Hearse right across the street from Betty's house, on the public road, of course. He'd spend his days keeping an eye on things, sipping coffee in the driver's seat, and occasionally scribbling notes in a little notebook just to keep up appearances. Betty was thrilled at first, finally, someone taking her concerns seriously. But after a week of having a creepy old Hearse parked outside her house every day and a scruffy guy staring out from behind the windshield, things took a turn. By the 2nd week, she cracked. She came outside, nervously approached the Hearse, and very politely asked Tommy if he would please move his surveillance operation somewhere else. He obliged, of course. Mission accomplished. From that day on, we never heard another complaint from Betty about the kids at the playground. The police never had to make another pointless visit, and the sound of children playing became just another background noise in the neighborhood. Sometimes the best way to deal with nosy, overbearing neighbors isn't to fight fire with fire, but to let their own ridiculousness collapse in on itself. And thanks to Tommy and his magnificent Hearse, that's exactly what happened. I expected that you set up the company and then advertised it to Betty so she would hire and pay him. That way Tommy can just sit around all day and get paid. And what makes the whole thing so perfect? Nothing malicious, nothing illegal, just a mirror held up to her own paranoia until it spooked her more than any playground shriek ever could. And our next story. She gave me a thank you and a smile. My boss gave me a warning letter. Story from the old gas station. I've got so many of these I should start my own subreddit. 2016 early spring. I just finished my shift. I clocked out and leaving to go home. I was still in my uniform and about to get into my car. Parked next to my car in the staff parking area was another car with a young woman, around 18, no older than 20, on her phone bawling to someone. She had a flat tire and didn't know what to do. The weather was awful. The rain was biblical. Typical British weather. She saw me and asked for my help. I gladly offered. The traffic was terrible and gridlocked. I thought, what the hell, I'll be sitting in traffic for the next hour anyway. I look in the car for the spare and the tools. The spare tire was there, but no tools. She got upset again. I told her not to worry. Luckily, today I was in my big old American Classic and it was a rolling restoration. My trunk was a mobile mechanics workshop. She got on her phone again to her dad. "You don't have to come now, Dad. This lovely man from the station is helping me." She cheered up instantly. I got out my jack, breaker bars, and sockets. I put some fresh air in her tire and she was ready to go. She thanked me, asked for my name, gave me a kiss on the cheek, and left. I was soaked and cold, but I felt good. I'd done my good deed for the day. The next day, I arrived for my 10 a.m. start. The boss was there today. Half an hour into my shift, the young woman came in. She was happy to see me and presented a gift and a card. She handed me them and thanked me again and left. It was a thank you, saying thanks and kisses for my good deed that she emailed the retail head thanking me, and the gift was a box of chocolates. It's one of the nicest moments of my life. A long-term single ugly gorilla of a man with a long history of depression getting praise and gifts from a truly stunning young woman? I was happy. The boss wasn't. He immediately called me into the office and chewed me out, saying that we are not insured to work on customers' cars, regardless that I did it after I clocked off, thus in my own time. I even used my own tools. He just laid into me, saying that I did it on site and in my uniform. Then he said I've broken my contract by accepting a gift from a customer and I'd be receiving a disciplinary for doing so, and I did. I handed my notice soon after and left in the summer. So I'd like to thank the young lady for the last happy memory from my old job. Thank you, Naomi. Your boss was a jerk. What you did on your own time is none of his business. The fact that it happened on business property was deserving of a minor talking to, but the end result was a happy customer. It's just too bad you had to deal with a boss like that. And our last story. I'm married to the owner. Back in 2019, I had one of the most ridiculous encounters with a full-blown Karen and her equally entitled kid while working at my dad's shop. For context, the shop is family-owned, my dad runs it, and I'd help out whenever I wasn't at school. There's usually steady business, busy but never chaotic. That day, however, a woman came in who made me rethink my tolerance for humanity. She strutted in with her kid trailing behind like she was storming a castle. The kid looked fine. Maybe a little bored, maybe a little whiny, but nothing unusual. Then she bellowed, "EM, excuse me?" Me, "Yes, ma'am?" EM, "My child is dehydrated and in terrible pain." Her son, meanwhile, was fiddling with something in his pocket and didn't look like he was seconds from collapse. No pale face, no dramatic wobbling, no fainting. Just a kid who clearly didn't want to be dragged to a store. Me, "All right, ma'am, if you grab a drink and bring it to the counter, I'll scan it for you straight away." EK, "Mom, I'm thirsty." EM, "Don't worry, darling. Mommy will fix it in a minute." She and EK disappeared into the aisles and came back with a Pepsi and a water. She plopped them down on the counter like she was slamming down evidence in a courtroom. EM, "As usual, I expect these drinks to be free." Me, "Excuse me? Why would that be?" EM, "Because I'm married to the owner of this shop, of course." I blinked at her. My dad, the actual owner, has been married to my mom for over 30 years. This woman definitely wasn't her. Me, "Ma'am, that's not correct. You're not married to the owner." EM, "How would you even know, you little brat?" Me, "Because I'm his son, and my mother is very much not you." Her jaw dropped. EK just stood there, sipping the Pepsi like it was popcorn for a show. She snapped out of her shock and grabbed the drinks, muttering something about not having time for this nonsense. I could see the intent clear as day. She was going to walk out without paying. Too bad for her, we had a security guard stationed at the door. Big guy, ex-military, didn't take crap from anyone. As she made her move, he stepped in front of her. Security, "Ma'am, you need to pay for those before you leave." EM, "My husband owns this store. You can't stop me." Security, "Funny, I just talked to the owner an hour ago, and he's still married to his wife." Hand the drinks over. She tried to push past him, but he simply held out his arm and stopped her cold. The drinks nearly slipped from her grip. Within minutes, he'd called the police. When the officers arrived, she went into full victim mode. EM, "This is harassment. My child is starving. He's dying of thirst, and they refused to give me water unless I paid. Who does that?" Officer, "Ma'am, it's a store. That's how stores work." She kept wailing and pointing at me, accusing me of lying about who my father was. The officers were not buying it. Eventually, they took her statement, listened to mine, then escorted her out in handcuffs for attempted shoplifting. EK, he was handed over to his dad, who looked like he'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes when he showed up. Poor guy just muttered, "Sorry about this," again, before leaving with his son. From the sound of it, this wasn't his first rodeo with her antics. Here's the best part. The next week, my dad got a call from her lawyer threatening to sue for emotional distress because I'd embarrassed her in public. Dad calmly replied, "Dad, tell your client that if she wants to take this to court, I'll happily bring the CCTV footage, the police report, and the fact that she falsely claimed to be my wife." Never heard from her again. To this day, whenever I see someone demand free stuff with the line, "Do you know who I am?" I can't help but think back to EM screeching about being married to my dad while EK slurped Pepsi in the background. Honestly, this whole story is the perfect definition of a Karen self-destructing in real time. She walked in already on the offensive, demanding free stuff like it was her God-given right, and when that didn't work, she doubled down with an outrageous lie, claiming to be the wife of the store owner. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.